Oh, I should. Give me 1 second here. So I've way too many tabs open currently on everything. Just way too many tabs. All right, everything looks good. How is everyone doing? Happy Friday. I feel like it's been when was the last time I did a Friday stream? It feels like it's been a long time. Did I not do one last week? I know I missed a week. Was it last week? No, I did because I did a class last week and I live streamed after that. So I did. Anyways, it feels maybe it's just been a long week. I don't know. No lag, yes. No lag. I hope that there's no lag. There shouldn't be. Or well, there's always going to be a little bit of lag because I'm not like a FPS high, fluent YouTube gamer. Like there's going to be some kind of lag, but not really that much, I hope, ideally. Oh god, I don't know. I can hear myself talking. No, don't do that. But I can't believe it's Friday and I've had a very busy day today, but like in a good way. I have so many things I wish I could talk to you all about that's like going on in terms of like YouTube stuff and career stuff and conferences and classes, and I can't like talk about any of it yet because it's still like it's not quite far enough along yet in the process to announce anything, but I'm like, some good stuff in the works, y'all. There's some good stuff in the works. Good stuff in the works. And yeah, long week is definitely a mood. So yeah, hope you all had a wonderful, happy Halloween if you did something. We did not get any trick-or-treaters at all. I was very upset. I did not personally do anything for Halloween. Well, okay. I watched What We Do in the Shadows and I made Halloween cookies. I did not go to a party. I did not go out and like celebrate Halloween with like other human beings or like an adult party or like go trick-or-treating or something. I did not do any of that. I did do fun stuff at home, which is a little bit different. But, that's my experience of Halloween. And then ever since then, it's been raining really hard and it might flood, and yeah, it's the weather is doing its thing. It is definitely doing its thing. All right, so I guess we'll just get into it. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so glad you could make it to my Friday stream. Just some really quick things before I get into it. This is an interactive Q&A, so you guys ask questions, I answer them. I do have some suggested topics in the title. I thought we could maybe talk about kink and media, and then we had a lot of stuff last time, I feel like, about kinks and like dating apps and like kinky dating and relationships, and maybe if we want to do more with that would be cool. If we want to talk about something else, that's great. Anything related to kink, BDSM, fetishes, asexuality, polyamory, alternative relationships, open relationships, all of that stuff. You just want to ask me about my favorite color or anime or decorating or I don't know what, right? Whatever. Just ask a question, we'll answer it. I do answer questions in the order that they come in. So asking questions early is always a good idea. I try to get to everyone. I cannot always get to everyone. And yeah, 18 plus only. Read the rules. Like it says right there, down below, description box. That is going to be really helpful. There's an FAQ in there, links to resources. Other things you would need to know about, just kind of brief overview of rules, would be don't give medical advice. I don't give mental health advice. Don't spam the chat. Don't repeat your question like 5 times in a row, because I do go in the order they come in. If you ask me 5 times in a row, I won't see the 5th time before the first time. And if I do notice you asking the same question like 5 times in 2 minutes, like I'm probably not going to answer it because it's going to annoy me and I don't want to reward bad behavior. So that is just the really brief overview. Just be kind, just be nice. That's really the golden rule, honestly. That's, just be nice. That really just covers all of it, honestly. And then I guess we'll just get into it. I don't know. I just feel like should have more I need to say, but I don't know. Yes, and thank you. Hit like on the video. It helps other people find the video, because YouTube, for some reason, has decided it's a good idea to change how they show live streams. And so it's a lot harder to find live streams now. You have to like go to a special tab on like somebody's channel to find it usually. Always. I feel like YouTube is like, they do busy work more than actually putting out features people care about. They're like, oh, guys, now we have a whole extra tab for your playlist. You've totally asked about that, right? No, nobody asked about that. Nobody was like, give me a whole extra tab for my playlist, please. Please, YouTube Daddy, give me an extra tab for my playlist. Nobody said that. Nobody wanted that. I really need to dye my hair. It looks worse in this light because this light is like yellow. So it looks more brown than it is. But whew, the roots are showing. Yes, also please be respectful. Always a good point. So let's get into some questions. Yes, liking the stream does help for sure. Algorithm gods, please help us in our time of need. And yeah, oh, I forgot to say hello. Hello, Violet. Hello, Hellhound. Hello, Delius. Hello, Deanston. Hello, Little Threat. Hello, Whitney. Hello, Purple Dragonfly. Hello, Twixie Shores. Hello, Alana. Hello, Christian. Hello, Dale. Hello, Doug. Hello, Chloe Bunny. Chloe, I don't Chloe. That's not, no one's name is Chloe. Maybe it is. Hello, Mindless Peace. Hello, Marie. Hello, Logan. Hello, Nathan. Hello, everyone. Glad you could make it for the live stream. And everyone else who joins in, you're all welcome. And yeah. Had a bad headache most of the day, but it cleared up from my drive home from work. Headaches, I struggle with headaches off and on quite a bit. Like, especially, I would say in the past, like, 2 years more than I have previously, and it's not fun. Makes it very hard to do anything on a computer. Like, I can go outside and, like, if I have a headache, I can definitely do housework and errands and things. Like, I can do, like, gardening stuff or dishes and laundry, but anything on a computer is just, like, a no-go. Maybe it means it's an eye strain headache? Is that what that means? I don't know. I'm not a medical provider. I don't know. Oh, yeah, there's mudslides. Yes. Yeah, the mudslides are a big deal, and flooding, and you know, that's what we get for having a super dry, hot summer and then no rain, and then suddenly all of the rain at once. That's just what happens. Ooh, interesting question. So Kristen, oh, by the way, if you guys want to make sure I answer your question, you can use a super chat down below. It's a little $sign in the chat. And then you can also, if you want to just skip through the middleman with YouTube, you can also go to my Streamlabs down below. And that one, 100% of the proceeds go to me. And then through YouTube takes like 30% or something like that. So either way, it'll end up on the screen. It'll read it out loud for you. It's very fun. Good way to ask a long question. And otherwise, I will just go through everything in order, but if you want to make sure I answer a question right away, that is what super chats are for. Also, my dog is with us because I have forced her to be inside because she keeps going outside and then inside and then outside and inside. And I realized something because she has very long hair. Here, let me show you. We'll demonstrate. Dog. Cease your operations, dog. Come here. And you're too far away. I can't get to you from over there. You gotta get closer. No. You want to lay down and then you want to roll over. You have to say hello to the people. You have to observe your fluff. This little munchkin, this little baby potato right here, she's very fluffy, as you can tell. Oh my gosh, my sweater matches the color of your fur. So cute. So she's very fluffy, and I realized that she doesn't realize when she's wet. Because even when she was like as wet as she can possibly get from rain, I could go underneath her fur and nothing was wet at all. It was really only her paws and like maybe her nose. And I was like, oh, that's why you keep going inside and outside. It's because you don't know what feeling wet feels like unless you're taking a bath. So she keeps going inside and outside and tracking mud all over the place and just being a little wet demon around the house, getting all the wet fur over all of the blankets. And all of the everything. So she has to be inside with me. Oh no. Such a tragedy. Such a tragedy. The Bendita. Yes, the Bendita has appeared. She literally... I thought I accidentally left my gardening shoes on. I thought I had left my gardening shoes on by mistake and tracked stuff upstairs. No, it was my dog. She just somehow... I don't know how. She literally left little dirt clods all over the house from like the garden... all the way up the stairs, like up to the first, like the top floor. And I was like, how, your paws are like this big. How is that? How did you do that? I don't know if she did. She found a way. She loves being outside. It's so like you wouldn't think that, but she just loves it. Outdoors, number one. I have a little raincoat for her. Somebody bought me, actually. Somebody that had my Amazon wish list. When I don't even think I still have that anymore. But when I had an Amazon wish list for a long time, I had a raincoat on there for Bandit, and she does have a little pink raincoat. But I put it on her when we go on walks in the rain. But when she's just like outside, because it has like a big hood on it, and she can't go. I don't think so. I haven't tried at least. I don't think she'd really be able to go through the dog door if she had like a raincoat hood on. But what I really need to get her is some little rain booties. That would be the best. All right, sorry, dog segue over. Let's get back to actual questions. Can you explain the potential? This is such a weird segue for anyone who doesn't watch my content. Can you explain the potential risks of performing impact play on risky parts of the body, like flogging on the lower back? So I think it's a really good question, but it's hard to know exactly what the potential risks are going to be in reality because it depends so much on the variables, right? It depends on the people playing. It depends on like where their body distributes fat and their like organ function and if they're on any other medications. And I can kind of give you the broad strokes of like doing impact play on certain parts of the body. Like, let's say, for example, because you said the lower back, we'll start there. So the reason why the lower back is a bad idea is because the kidneys are there, and the kidneys are fairly sensitive things, and if you hit the kidneys vis-a-vis the back repeatedly, you are very likely to cause blood in your urine, which is generally not a good thing to have happen. Damaging your kidneys from an external force, generally not recommended. And if you're like an average, like if you are a superficially healthy person who doesn't have to get a lot of like regular testing done for things related to their various body systems, I guess, like their circulatory system or like your urinary tract or something, like if you're not used to having your body monitored, there's always the potential that something underlying could be going on that you don't know about yet, that, for example, impact play on the organs could make worse or provoke or cause a flare-up or something. And this both goes, though most people tend to have more of a risk with like flogging on the kidneys because even though we did have 50 Shades of Grey demonstrate to us that like apparently flogging on the stomach is super hot and amazing and everyone loves it, even though it's not, the main organ that most people run into accidentally or even on purpose thinking is going to feel good will do is the kidneys. Now, my experience at least is that like impact play over the kidneys does not really feel good. Like even if you thought it was a good idea, like it wouldn't feel very pleasurable because there's not really typically a lot of like padding and muscle there, which is what causes the sensations that makes BDSM feel good, is there's just not that padding there. Now when it comes to like flogging on like the stomach, but what you mean like the torso, right, which is like all your intestines that are from, you know, your chest down to your pubic area, all of that, bad idea. Internal bleeding, Lord knows what else, just really not a good idea. The main thing I think that most people are going to run into with that is going to be problems with like internal bleeding and like internal bruising and all that. You generally want to avoid messing with the soft, squishy, very easily messed up organs inside your body. Generally a no-go. Some of the other risky parts of the body to play with would definitely be the joints, right? So like the knees, elbows, the wrists, as far as impact play goes. So now you can do things like, you know, rope, for example, or cuffs around your wrists. Very different from like, you know, somebody, I don't even know what somebody would do, like hitting you with a paddle on like the side of your wrist, like onto one of your bones. Like obviously not going to feel good. Do not recommend. Now, if you want to do something on the hands, you can have somebody hold up their hands. And this is a very like old school, like UK discipline thing, right? Is have somebody hold, or if you had a piano teacher, having to hold out your hands and then, you know, getting your hands whacked with like a ruler or a tawse or something. That's, you know, one way you could play in that area. But joints, very sensitive, not good to mess with. Generally, you know, getting your patella dislocated, you know, rotator cuff injuries, etc. You just don't want to mess with the joints. They don't feel good. It's not like, why would you do that? Like it's nerve damage as well, because there's a lot of nerves that will go through different parts of the joints that are because I'm not really doing an anatomy class here, but like there's also tends to be a lot of like nerves that go around joints as well, and so it's sort of like a 2-for-1 deal of like a bad idea for impact play around those areas. But generally, like the most mild thing you'd have to worry about is like it doesn't feel good and it's uncomfortable, and then the worst you would worry about is like either aggravating an underlying condition that you didn't know was there, and then causing damage or some kind of injury to internal organs. So that is what I would probably say for that. And just like I think it's really easy to stay within the boundaries of like what generally feels good for playing with BDSM, like the thighs, the back of the thighs, the butt, the back, even the chest area if you have like enough tissue there, either from muscle or fat deposits. Those can all feel really good for impact play of varying kinds. And I think that it's like, why would you want to hit somebody on the elbow when like the back's right there? You know, just sort of like, why would you even want that to be an option? Like the one thing I do see a lot of people, well, not a lot, the most common thing that I will see that people do is fucking impact play in the kidneys though. People are obsessed with that. I have literally gone to dungeons where somebody who says they have a lot of experience and is like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for forever, and then they're like doing a really long impact play scene, and then like a third of it is them like hitting somebody on the kidneys, to the point where I doubt myself about like, oh, maybe the kidneys are fine. No. Every class I've ever taken, every piece of advice I've ever gotten from somebody that works in the medical field that does BDSM, universally say that hitting the kidneys is a bad idea and you probably shouldn't do it. And yet people persist and no one says anything about it. And then somebody who says they have a lot of experience continues to cause bottoms unnecessary injury because they don't even know the risk of what it is they're even actually doing. And that's very frustrating. Once I was under a master baker and he hit my hand with a flour-covered rolling pin. This might sound silly. I need to clarify this. Was this like a role play thing, or were you actually like, were you working in an actual kitchen? Were you working in an actual bakery? Because I could see either one being true, and I think that the chef and like, I don't even know what, like the people who are under the chef, right? Like the sous chefs or whoever, like, yes, chef is a very underrated, like, D-type master dominant role. That's my 2 cents. Is it okay to do impact play over scarring? I feel like we're getting into sort of medical advice territory here, so I will just briefly say it depends on the impact play, it depends on the type of scarring, it depends on where it is in the body. If you are doing an impact play scene with a needle paddle over a surgical scar you have on your stomach, I wouldn't advise that. But if it's like you have a really small scar from like chicken pox you had as a kid and it's a non-keloid scar, it's probably fine. If you have keloid scars, I would just avoid doing impact play over them. If you have a keloid scar, you know you have a keloid scar. Generally not great to, you know, be causing extra because then even, again, this is getting into medical advice territory that I'm not like comfortable with, but I will just say that like keloid scarring or like abnormal wound healing, adding additional trauma to that area that may result in the body reacting to trying to heal that trauma can potentially make things worse. I am not an expert on that. Do your own research on it. I would not personally advise it if it was somebody who like they wanted to do an impact play scene over the back that was like, let's say like a heavy caning scene or whatever, but they wanted to get to the point of like drawing blood or like really a severe bruising over an area that had keloid scarring. I would not, I was a top, I wouldn't agree to do that. Now, if it was more like a lighter sensation play scene over like a chickenpox scar or something, or like a really old surgical scar, I probably wouldn't have an issue with it. But again, I'm not a medical expert. But good question, though. I think that's fair to ask about. Because generally speaking, impact play is not as risky as most people assume it is. Like, a lot of people go, oh my god, it's so scary. They're getting hit with a paddle. They're getting hit with a flogger. Oh my god, what are they doing? And then, like, in actual reality, you're much more likely to be hurt doing, like, bondage than you are with impact play. Like, bondage to me is, like, way more risky than your average, normal, intro impact play scene. impact play on the really high end of it, where it's drawing blood and the scenes are really, really long, that has its own level of risk to it. But most of it is like soreness, discomfort, accidentally causing an injury, soft tissue damage, that sort of deal, which is very different from like permanent, irreversible, uncurable nerve damage from like a single tie that could happen at any point you do bondage because of the particular thing that you're doing, as opposed to like most, like if I had to put a guess to it, I have seen for every like 9, or maybe even for every 50 bondage injuries I've heard of, nerve damage, dislocating something, anything like that, I have heard one story of somebody being injured from an impact play scene. I know like 3 stories of people being injured in an impact play scene. Usually the main risk factors for that are tops playing with an unfamiliar toy outside of their skill set, people playing drunk and in dark spaces where they can't really aim that well, and like people not doing proper aftercare for when impact play causes broken skin. So the main thing tends to be like soft tissue damage, occasionally like some kind of like bruising, joint dislocation, things of that variety. But like infection tends to be the number one thing that you end up seeing with like impact play going wrong, is like somebody breaks skin with a paddle, they can't get to the spot on their skin where the injury happened, so they can't like put antiseptic on it, they can't clean it appropriately, it gets really sweaty, it gets dirty, they wear dirty clothes over it, whatever. It's completely just like the worst possible situation for a dirty open wound, and they don't clean it, and then it ends up getting infected. And I do know of somebody very like fifth party on FetLife heard a story about it. I do know somebody, through the grapevine, that had an injury from BDSM that was a result from, I believe, a paddling or a similar impact play toy, where they did almost have a septic wound from it not being taken care of appropriately after the scene. So aftercare is very important, not only just for the mental and emotional side of BDSM, but also for taking care of wound healing, cleaning things up, making sure that if you notice, like, because, especially if you're doing a really heavy scene where the bottom may be like totally out of it and might just be like off in La La Land, like you might want to write them a note or send them an email or something and be like, hey, we had a really great scene. We discussed beforehand the risk of skin breaking. It looks like you do have a skin break here on your back. I put a Tangaderm on it, put whatever on it, and, make sure you take care of it. Here's what you should do, blah, blah, blah. Like, have a great night, have a good weekend, whatever. Like, have some way to communicate to your partner, like if you've broken their skin or if you notice an open wound injury, because if you're had a really great scene, you're on subspace cloud 9 for the whole rest of the night, and you go home and you wake up with really like intense sub drop, you might not realize that like your back soreness, might even think to check to be like, is that broken skin? Because it might just kind of all blend in with the bruising and everything, so you just got to be careful. Definitely got to be careful. Whereas with bondage injuries, a lot of it isn't even necessarily people playing outside of their skill set or people doing things drunk, intoxicated, high, whatever. It's people doing just normal, average bondage, and usually it's handcuffs and rope bondage are the 2 main culprits, which is why I don't recommend either necessarily for beginners. Handcuff injuries, people like causing wrist injuries, dislocating something, like just in general, like fucking up their wrist in some way for struggling against handcuffs, because handcuffs are not designed to be comfortable. They are designed by the police state to control you, and they don't feel nice. They don't feel good. They're not meant to, handcuffs exist to punish you for struggling, including the possibility of potentially light injury to mild to moderate to, if you've really struggled with it, I guess severe injury. Like, it tends to be people either that like they're either like they're handcuffed to something and they struggle too much and their wrist gets fucked up because they're like, oh no, please don't, master, I promise I'll be good, and then they struggle too much with their arms and they fuck up their wrist that way. Or they get handcuffed in a position where they can't get to their hands, like they get handcuffed behind their back and then like fall, right? They fall, they can't catch themselves, they fucking biff it on something. That tends to cause a fair amount of injury. And then also like nerve impingement from wearing handcuffs that are too tight and the pressure is much more like when you're wearing a leather cuff. I don't have one near me. When you're wearing like a leather cuff, it like use the same rules you would use for like a dog collar, right? You want to be able to get like a finger through it, or 2 fingers, whatever the rules for dog. You want to be able to you want to have some wiggle room. Maybe not the exact same thing as a dog collar, but like you want to be able to have some wiggle room to it where you can, have some breathing room for it because sweat and everything else. It shouldn't be completely tight against the skin, but it also distributes pressure like way more. So pressure that's distributed here is very different from pressure distributed just here, right? That's a lot more force going into one area when it's like, this versus like this. So leather cuffs don't tend to cause as many issues as commonly just because that pressure is more distributed. It's a smooth surface. It's not metal. There's nothing jagged on it. And usually if you roll your wrists in like a leather cuffs, they'll kind of roll with you, if that makes sense. They're not going to fight you. Whereas like handcuffs kind of like tend to dig and fight and because they're meant to prevent you from struggling. So they're a little bit more intense. But with rope bondage, what you tend to see more often is like nerve impingement that could be wrist, but most oftentimes it tends to be more like the upper arms and things like that. Even if you're doing it all the steps correctly, you've taken the classes, you've done it a million times, the bottom's done it a million times, it doesn't matter. Sometimes nerve injury just happens because human bodies be like that sometimes. You can do everything correctly in a rope bondage scene and still have nerve damage. Or at least get into the beginning stages of causing a nerve damage issue, which is very scary because there's not really any, as far as I'm aware, any good consistent treatments that will solve a nerve injury and be like, take this medication, it'll go away, right? Bed rest for 5 weeks, ice it, whatever. Like there's not a way to guarantee that you won't end up having a nerve damage injury that won't be long lasting. For some people, it's like a day or 12 hours. For some people, it's 6 months. For some people, it's 2 years. For some people, it's, it gets a little bit better, but then it doesn't ever really fully go away. So you have to be very careful because nerve damage injuries are they're a crapshoot. You never really know what you're going to get. There's not really a consistent way to make sure they don't happen. So just be aware of the risk. That's my spiel on that. All right, I got the one question. I got through one question. To be clear, I want to be clear with handcuffs and with anything related to this. Because people get mistaken about this. It being risky is not bad. It is just risky. I'm not making a value judgment about the risk. You can do things that are risky. You can do things that are uncomfortable. You can do things that might potentially result in damage. All of that is fine and dandy so long as you go into things in an informed way, in a consensual way, where if I play with handcuffs, this kind of thing might happen. If we do a rope bondage tie where my arms are bound behind the back and the rope is going over, like a box tie or something. I was trying to get around like having to use technical terms, but we'll just call it for what it is, I guess. You can do all of that as long as you know what it is you're getting into. And as a top, you have the responsibility to explain and to encourage your partner to explore and understand and know what the risks are. And as a bottom, you have the responsibility and you have the obligation to explore and learn on your own. So do whatever the fuck it is that you want consensually. I'm not saying any of this is necessarily inherently bad or wrong. I would say it's kind of shitty to present yourself as like, I'm this big wig experienced dom and I've been doing this for 10 years and blah, blah, blah. When like you just, without telling anybody, do an impact play scene where you flog someone or spank them or whatever over their kidneys and don't explain what those risks are, because a newer person to BDSM might not realize they need to disclose to you that they only have one kidney, or they have a kidney disorder, or they've recently recovered from kidney cancer or something. Like, if you don't tell someone what the risks are, they might not know to disclose certain things to you that then become relevant because of those risks that they didn't know about. Does that make sense? So just be cautious, do your research, and as a bottom, do that. As a top, encourage people. Also make sure that you're educated as the top in what's going on. And yeah, just don't underestimate the ability of BDSM to be risky, I suppose, is what I would say. Handcuffs are great for certain headspaces. Like, handcuffs are great for, like, interrogation play. They're really great for, like, if you like super layered bondage scenes. If you really like the feeling of metal and, like, cold metal, a bit more, like, clinical stuff, handcuffs can be totally great for that, or, like, iron manacles or, like, steel manacles can be great for that. I'm not completely discounting them by any means. They are not my cup of tea because I like bondage that's less, like, I like being restricted, but I like it being more like warm, I guess is the term I would use. I really things that are like cold clinical metal are really not my jam personally, but I do encourage people to, you know, experiment with what it is they want to do. Oh God, handcuff suspension with kidney caning, 5-head experience, Dom. I mean, you say that. I'm 100% sure if I looked hard enough on like an amateur like BDSM porn website, I would find somebody who's done like a single point suspension with somebody in handcuffs overhead like this, where they're, you know, caning somebody on their kidneys and on their thighs, right? Because there's a way, like, you can do things with, like, you know, overhead stuff with handcuffs, and like, especially when it comes to porn, a lot of stuff looks very risky, but there's actually a lot of safety built into it that the average person does not do for their real BDSM scenes. So just be aware of that. Anyways, let's get into some more questions. Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff. Thank you for allowing me to rant. I love you all being here. Do you think Rihanna will perform S&M live at the Super Bowl next year? Oh, it is a Super Bowl soon, isn't it? February. Is Rihanna performing? Listen, I'm so out of the loop. I don't own like a cable television. I don't know what's going on in like the regular world half the time. If it's not on Twitter, I don't know about it. I would probably say I would love it if it happened, but probably not. I think it would be very funny if she did like a fucking like a Jenna Tortures like BDSM performance at the Super Bowl. I'd tune in for that. I don't think it's gonna happen. I feel like her brand's more mature now in a way, sort of. Like, still sexy, but, like, not as risque. Does that make sense? Is that even really a difference? I don't know. I didn't get to be a part of last week's stream, but I saw you in FD Signifier's video. I was so excited to see you in his video. Thank you. I really like getting to do that. I wish I had had more time because he reached out to me kind of like later on in the process, and so he didn't get to interview me the way that he did some of the other people in the video. And it would have been nice to do that, to have a little bit more of like a back and forth dialogue, but I was very happy to contribute to that conversation as somebody who was raised Catholic, but then is kinky, but is also asexual, but also is not monogamous, and it's very got a lot of things going on that conservative Christians would be very confused about, but I exist to confuse people, I suppose. I am nothing if not a minefield of paradox to some people. I recently watched your soft on video. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I recently, was it What's a Safe Word? They did a video about praise kinks, actually, which I think you might enjoy if you liked my soft on video, because they also touch on that a little bit. Would you recommend FetLife for meeting people? It depends on what you mean by meeting people. So if what you mean by meeting people is you want to find someone to date and you want to find romantic relationships, I do not recommend FetLife for that. It's not a dating app. It's not a dating website. It is very, very, very hard to meet someone for the purpose of dating through FetLife. The only time that has ever happened to me or anyone I know is it was like one of the very first times I had tried anything related to BDSM. I had signed up for a beginner's rope bondage class, just solo. I lived in a college town, so keep in mind, like everyone, like almost everyone in the kink scene, it's like 80% college students and then 20% everyone else. So it's very, very heavily dominated by college kids. And so I have somebody reach out to me that's also like college age. I don't think they go to my school, I don't remember. But they reached out to me and they were like, hey, I'm also going to this by myself. Are you going by yourself? Do you want to be like tying partners? And then I was like, sure, let's meet up and talk about it. And then we met at like a brunch place or something, and we had brunch and we really hit it off and we went to the class together and it was great, and then we ended up dating. So, you know, that's what ended up happening. Okay, by the way, I've talked about this before. This is a complete non sequitur. I'm going to finish answer this question. Opinions on what earrings I should get, because I want to get a double lobe piercing, but I do already have like an existing like scar from like an old ear piercing that hasn't actually been an ear piercing in like 15 years. But I have like, my cartilage is like very strange. I have like flat cartilage right here. I don't know if you guys can like see that. I have flat hair. Get out of the way here. I have very flat cartilage right here. So I feel like I might be able to actually do an industrial if it's like really short up here, which would be fucking dope. But I don't know what else I should do. Like, what else would be cool? Ear piercing opinions. Let me know. So if you want to use it for dating, I would not use it for dating. However, if you legit mean you just want to meet people, like people to talk to, the way that I would use FetLife and the way I recommend using it, and I am doing an updated like how to use FetLife guide video very soon, don't worry. What I would do is I would use it as a way to find things locally, like local groups, local events, local organizations, and munches. Go to the events that you find on FetLife to meet people at the events and then connect with them through FetLife. I find that FetLife works best when it's people you meet at like a party, at a dungeon, a munch, a conference or something, and you go, oh, hey, like my name's blah, 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 my username of FetLife is blah, blah, blah. And then you talk later afterwards through FetLife. Because a lot of people feel more comfortable, like, you know, they're not going to give you their full legal name, or like, you know, no one uses email anymore. So that tends to be a good way to connect with people in the kink community who maybe want to keep their like kink and like actual personal everyday life stuff a little bit more separate. But that would be what I would do for meeting people on FetLife. But it's like, if you want to like just talk to people through FetLife and have like online only stuff, I'm not very experienced with that. But from what I understand, most people don't have a lot of luck trying to do it that way, where they meet people through FetLife and that's like all they do is they just, you know, they're on FetLife and they don't go to parties, they don't go to anything, and they make friends through FetLife. That tends to be a lot less common, but colloidal silver. Oh, I've never heard that for piercing wound healing. Most people here advise just like sterile saline. I have not heard anything about silver before. Is that like the new hotness? Is that the new thing all the APP piercers are recommending? Okay, this is it though. I'm wearing gold right now, but what I'd like to do, because I like being able to wear both colors of jewelry because I own both, I would want to get both colors. I would want to have multiple ear piercings so I could wear both gold and silver, because I hate having to choose like, oh, I can only, because I like, if I only have one gold thing and everything else is silver, I hate that. I need to be able to have like a little bit of everything. So I would want to have a piercing where it had both gold and silver tones to it. That would be my ideal. I feel like I can really wear either color of jewelry. I think I wear silver more often because that was like the in thing when I was younger, but now like everything's gold jewelry just like all the time. Yeah, no, stab wounds are pretty serious. Don't do stabbing scenes are not like a thing that people do. That's not really a thing as it turns out. Is there like a colloidal silver MLM? Is there an MLM for that? All right, I'm gonna pop out the chat here. All right. Okay, so just FYI, I think I probably missed some stuff, but where I'm at right now is, okay, the chat's really helping my FetLife questions, and then I was looking for non-sexual BDSM lifestyle related stuff, maybe pet play, info, ideas, etc. I like to read a lot about BDSM, but couldn't find my way into FetLife. Munches and parties aren't really a thing where I live, so that's pretty much out of the question. Not looking to meet up with anyone. Yeah, thanks anyone. Non-sexual BDSM lifestyle related stuff. Like, okay, I think books are definitely like a good direction for that. If you need recommendations, I have a huge list of recommendations for documentaries and books in the list down below in the description box. And I'm trying to think of anything else I'd recommend kind of besides that for like non-sexual BDSM lifestyle. I mean, like most munches I've been to are not sexual. Even most parties I've been to. It really depends on who's hosting it, to be clear. But depending on where you live and like just who organizes events, most places are not very like overtly sexual. Like it's I think it's become more common since COVID happened and people coming back to events now. You will see more people having sex at events than maybe you did like 4 years ago. But even now, it's not like, you know, you can definitely go to BDSM events that are not really like that sex focused. Also wondering if you're going to offer video topics on Patreon again. My sir and I wanted to pay for a video on that topic, but it says it's sold out right now. Yeah, I think I just sold my last one. I think got filled up this month. I'll check. Sometimes people sit on a tier even though they technically haven't actually paid for the month, and so I have to kick them off the tier, which I haven't done yet because I try to give people like a full, like, you know, full business week to get their payment and everything sorted, because, you know, bills and you know, late payments from, you know, whatever you work at or whatever. But if you, I'm totally open to like having another spot open for video topics. I don't know if you want to send me an email. My email address, I'll just put it in there. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay. So my email address is, I think it's down below, just because it's not. It's looppineeventide@gmail.com. If you want to send me an email over there with, like, if you want me to open up a new tier, I'll just double check to make sure there's not a spot that's actually open. And if there is a spot that I can open up, I'll just add an extra spot to that tier and you can go ahead and sign up for it if you want. I do have somebody that did request a video that I am going to be working on about vetting. So I'm excited to do that one. It's going to be like vetting and dating and making sure like how to end up in like a healthier relationship and kind of like red flags and vetting sort of put together. I think it's going to be a really interesting topic because I haven't like, I've talked about vetting in a lot of videos as like parts of a video, but I haven't really deep dive into vetting just by itself. So I'm looking forward to that one. Oh yeah. My sir and I have transitioned from DS to MS, and I was wondering if you have any tips for maintaining the dynamic respectfully during disagreements and heated emotional moments. Oh yeah, I could have a whole video about that. I have so many resources for that. I would love the opportunity to make a video about that. So, yeah, definitely if you want a video topic done, like, let me know. But I will also put it on my list so I don't forget to ask about it at some point. Let's see, how do I concisely say what this like topic idea is? How to maintain the dynamic and be respectful during heated gamer moments. No. During heated times and emotional moments. Can't agree. I've had a nerve injury, not from BDSM, and it lasted for years. Yeah, no, nerve injuries suck. Like, do not take those lightly. Like, especially if you're anyone who works on your, like, honestly, any kind of job. Because, like, if you're typing and you do, like, computer work, if you don't have, you know, fine motor skills in one hand, like, what are you gonna do if you have a wrist injury or a nerve injury? Not a whole lot. If you work a more manual labor job and you have to be able to carry heavy things or use something that requires two hands, like, you're not going to be able to do that if you have a safety injury, or not going to be able to do that safely if you have a wrist injury. So just be careful. Just be careful. Do I like the Elder Scrolls games? I really, really liked Oblivion. And I know a lot of people really liked Skyrim. And I also played a lot of Skyrim. However, there was something that was, and I don't know what it is, there was just a je ne sais quoi. There was something about the way that Oblivion felt that I don't think was like fully captured in Skyrim. Like for me, my favorite quest line, and I think this is one of the most popular quest lines in any game, was the Dark Brotherhood saga in Oblivion. And I don't really think they were able to fully get close to that in the way they did in Oblivion. And like I would even go back now and probably replay Oblivion if I wasn't in the middle of, or like something like that, if I wasn't in the middle of like 5 other games I wanted to play. But I don't necessarily think I would go back and replay Skyrim again. I don't know if that's like an unpopular opinion. I did not play Morrowind because I was way too young to play Morrowind when it came out, and then I just like played a lot of Oblivion. So I've heard good things about Morrowind as well, but I don't have any experience with that. But I like the general concept and the vibe of like the Elder Scrolls is cool. Aren't they supposed to be coming out with a new game? Like when the heck is the new Elder Scrolls game supposed to come out? I know they've been doing like Elder Scrolls Online and stuff, but like they've got to be working on something for like an actual main game for like next gen consoles, right? Like there has to be something. Because they didn't even come out with anything for PlayStation 5. Because Skyrim had already been out. They put that out for the PlayStation 4, didn't they? In 2021, Phil Spencer said The Elder Scrolls 6 would be coming out after Playground Games' Fable title. It is set to be released on PC and Xbox. Howard confirmed in a June 2022 interview the game is still in pre-production. Oh, holy shit. That is quite far behind. That is ways away. Because Skyrim came out in what, like 2012, 2011? Yeah, it's been literally, I cannot believe, this sounds crazy. It has been 10 years, over 10 years since Skyrim came out. And they haven't had a new mainline game. They've just been doing, they came out with Blades, and then they came out with like Elder Scrolls Online. Oh, don't worry, they came with a card game too, the Elder Scrolls Legends. Like, just this nice standalone mainline game, you know? Oh my god, have you seen the giantess trend on TikTok? There's so much unintentional fetish content on that app. Is it unintentional? Have we confirmed? Have we confirmed it's not unintentional? Because, listen, a lot of people will play off like they're being innocent about like, oh my god, I didn't realize that feet pics weren't a trend. I thought it was just a trend. What do you mean it's a fetish? And they completely know, and it's because they want to sell their OnlyFans. Like, you know, who knows? I would have thought they wanted to follow up Skyrim, they would have done 2/22/22. They would have done February 22nd of 2022 if they wanted to keep it in line, but apparently not. They were like, no, not going to do it. Sorry, missed that window. Oh, Half-Life 3 is never coming out. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just like, I would be surprised that if Bethesda left like their most successful, like, most game companies, BioWare, Activision, like they have completely turbo fucked their people's mainstream opinions about them as a game company. Either because their games are shit, they're full of microtransactions, they don't care about their employees, sexual harassment, the works, right? Like they've just absolutely, completely nerfed everyone's opinions of them. And I feel like that's maybe a reason for why you would delay putting something out. Is you're like, oh, well, we don't want to put something out when we're like controversial and people hate us. We want to wait a couple of years and like maybe have the anchor die down and then release something. And I feel like Bethesda waiting 11 years to release a new mainline Elder Scrolls game is like, fucking Pokemon's been putting out one game a year for 20 years. It's almost always basically the same game with slightly different graphics and new little creatures in it. But they figured out a way to fucking have that factory belt going, you know? Like, I want somewhere that exists between one game per decade and a new game every year. Could we just aim for like every 2 years, every 3 years? Something where you're actually, you know, maintaining the IP and interest in the IP for a new generation, but you're also not like making it so boring because there's always like a new version of a new version every year. I don't know. Or we could just, release Skyrim for, my smart release Skyrim for my smart fridge. Like that just really feels like that's the direction they're going in right now. It's like every other device of the planet is going to be able to play Skyrim before they actually end up making a new game. All right, let's go to another question. Let's see what's going on here. I did a rope suspension scene with a very skilled rope top that had been doing it for years, and next day my foot was numb. LMAO, didn't get that feeling back until a week later. Yep. That's how it be sometimes. That is how it be. I feel like most people don't actually have very random safe words. Like, yes, people will have like pineapple, kumquat, avocado, LOL, so funny. But almost everyone I know in the BDSM scene that plays often, and not just like couple doing something fun for like Valentine's Day kind of level of involvement, usually they either use just like safe word or red. They don't get very creative with it because when you play at dungeons a lot, like most of the dungeon or house safe words are red or safe word. And so it makes more sense to just use one safe word that works for all environments versus like, oh wait, it's a safe word, is it pineapple or kumquat or red or stop or no, or what's the safe word again? Like, it just makes it easy to remember if it's the same all over the place. Oh god. I keep losing my pop-out chat for some reason. There it goes. Okay. Do your research and know what your actions can be permanent, both sides, both you and the bottom. Yes. Speaking of informed consent and kink in media, one thing that concerns me is people who don't know what they're doing, randomly doing dangerous things and without informed consent. That unfortunately happens a lot, and I think, I kind of have varying opinions about this because I don't want to gatekeep too hard, but I think a level of gatekeeping is like necessary for safety purposes. Like, yes, not everyone plays with a safe word. Not everyone does aftercare. Not everyone reads 10 books and goes to a dungeon and watches and takes a class intensive or whatever before they're doing BDSM. That doesn't mean what they're doing is like wrong or bad or inherently dangerous. But it's when people take BDSM things and then do them outside of a BDSM context and then apply vanilla consent frameworks to it that I start to have a problem with it. Because when you are, for example, choking somebody, but you just kind of take the vanilla approach to sex education and the vanilla approach to consent, what that means is everyone's fucking guessing about how everything works. Everyone is just assuming, oh, it's gonna be fine, it's not harmful, it's not bad. No one knows what a safe word is. No one wants to use a safe word because using a safe word would be uncool. Nobody checks in. Everyone just does whatever they want and they go, I think this is how you're supposed to do it, ? Nobody knows. Like, they fucking do it. And then no one checks in. No one knows anything about anything. And then when you fucking survey these people, this is what drives me nuts. When you survey everyone about, like, their choking experiences, broadly, they consider them to be post hoc consensual, which I'm not sure that's a phrase, but I'm using this phrase. Come at me, academia. I will fight you. So what I see happens is with, for example, when people do choking is the main one that comes up oftentimes, but also like spitting in people's mouths, spanking people without their prior permission, like anything that sort of has gotten adopted into mainstream culture as like being kinky, but then vanilla people do it because it's edgy and cool and feels good, but like BDSM is still bad and gross, but like us doing it is fine because like people have this weird bifurcation in their brains between like the fun, sexy, hot things that I do because they're sexy, fun, and hot because I am a sexy, fun, hot person who is not controlled by, conservative values, and I will do things that are cool and edgy and hot because I am a hot girl, hashtag hot girl summer. And then like BDSM activities, and BDSM is weird and bad and gross, and people in gimp masks, and adults that dress like babies, and oh, that's weird and gross. Who would want to do that? It's anti-feminist. If you're a submissive woman, you're anti-feminist. And then like being spanked by your partner in the bedroom is good because it's hot and you're hot, and it's because you're a freak, and being a freak is good because that's like what the current standard is for like young people engaging in sexuality for the first time. So it's very strange to me that people take BDSM things and it's like I have a little lip treatment thing here. It's like they're going, oh, this has always been ours. What do you mean? This is my lipstick. I'm not. Your makeup's gross. I don't like your makeup. It's very overdone. Your makeup's like, it's way too. I like a very natural look personally. I'm a very natural makeup girl, and you're wearing your pink eyeshadow and your purple lipstick and just like no. But this, I can use this. This is mine. I can use this. This is mine. And they just fucking do it, right? That's probably a terrible analogy, but it's what I had on hand. All right, don't sue me. So they take what they want. But what they don't take with it are any of the safety instructions, any of the community values, any understanding of consent whatsoever. And so you have people that are doing things that even within the kink scene are very high risk, right? Like choking is not allowed at most venues, is not allowed at most dungeons. Most people don't do it because it is very dangerous. And then you have vanilla people choking each other left, right, and center because they go, oh, well, it's just like they don't have any conception of like sex going wrong. Like they don't have like, because sex mostly works out, they don't think about how it could go wrong, right? Or what they think about going wrong is like stereotypical stranger danger, somebody raping you in the bushes type shit, as opposed to like getting drunk at a party and a guy taking advantage of you and doing things without your consent, but like you're still kind of conscious and sort of remember it, and like they don't really think about those like more actual reality areas of experiencing bad things during sex. And so what I find happens is, though, in these studies, people will say, and I have a whole video about this, people will say, this felt really good, I enjoyed this, and I had a fun time, it was consensual, I liked it, at fairly high levels. Not surprisingly, highest levels of enjoyment are with 18 to 22-year-old undergraduate female students. Lowest levels of consistent satisfaction are trans women across the board, trans people across the board, and graduate level women. Make of that what you will. Women over the age of like 24, 25. And there seems to be somewhat of a correlation where the less you know about choking, the more you like it. The less you know about the risks of choking, the more likely it is you will find it enjoyable. It literally ruins the mood for people to learn more about the risks of the practices they're engaging in. And so they don't, because they don't realize they need to, because they're not encouraged at any point in their lives in any way to research about sex, to learn about sex, because admitting they don't know something would make them prudish or inexperienced or like a bad lover. And so they don't want to admit when they don't know something. But at the same time, from what I understand from these surveys, is the consent is not generally established beforehand. The event itself is not talked about before it actually happens. And that's the problem, is yes, people are reporting a fairly high level, like 86 to 94% will say that all of their choking interactions have been consensual. But I think what's happening here is you're not actually seeing a pre-event negotiation process where people know what's going to happen before it happens. It's that very like going with the flow, feeling the mood, trying stuff out, seeing what works, and not talking about it beforehand because it ruins the mood. I don't think anything has to ruin the mood. I think we tell people that talking beforehand ruins the mood. And if we changed our education, if we changed the way that we presented how sex worked to the next generation, that might change. As Tuxie Shores notes, for vanillas, sex going wrong equal unwanted pregnancy. Yes. For cis-het vanilla people, sex goes wrong when baby happens and in no other way. So they don't think about the risks because generally for them, sex does not really go wrong. And so they don't, because it's also like, when you're young and you don't really have a sense of like bad things happening to you, you generally feel sort of infallible. This is like a psychological thing that is true for developing brains. So, you know, one of the many reasons why young people, 18 plus only, should not be participating in BDSM. And it just is very strange to me that, like, people will sort of judge how consensual the act was, not on if their consent was actually asked for, but on if they enjoyed it or not. My sub and I are polyamorous, and they're really into choking, but it's a hard limit for me. How do I express my concerns to them if they seek it out? Like from you or from other people? That's a very, I have multiple angles for that. I will totally get to that. I want to wrap up my kind of thought here, and then we will get to that because it's a very, very good question. So yeah, it's just very interesting to me that people sort of seem to judge whether or not an act was consensual, not on whether the consent was actually asked for, but if it ended up feeling good or not. Isn't that like a really weird way to think about consent, especially coming from a BDSM framework where oftentimes we negotiate for and ask for things and consent to things that don't necessarily feel very good. That might be something we're doing for the sake of the other person. If we judge consent based off of if it was pleasurable for us or not, that creates all kinds of problems, because you can consent to something that ends up being an experience that does not feel very good. I speak for myself here as an asexual person. I have sex with partners sometimes, and oftentimes I consent to sex acts that I know are not going to feel good. It doesn't mean I didn't consent. It means I consented even though I knew it wasn't going to be pleasurable for myself. And if we were just measuring things off of whether or not they ended up feeling nice for us, that would create a lot of weird predicaments for understanding consent for like ace people that have sex and BDSM in general and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah. I do not have a video on dealing with jealousy because dealing with jealousy is a huge topic. I really recommend, there's a couple of really great books you can get from Amazon, links below in my recommended reading list and my FAQ. There's a ton of great resources and books out there for dealing with jealousy. I would recommend the book Poly Secure if you want to learn more about like dealing with jealousy and attachment issues in poly relationships. It's a really, really good comprehensive read about the subject. Okay, so you have a partner who's a submissive, you're polyamorous, they're into choking, you're not. How do you talk to them? What was the exact phrasing? I'm going to look this up real quick to make sure I get this correct. I'm just going to see if I can read this verbatim. Yes, my sub and I are polyamorous, and they're really into choking, but it's a hard limit for me. How do I express my concerns to them if they seek it out? So I think one thing to note here, because it's always worth noting whenever we're having a conversation about polyamory, is outside of things that affect you personally, you cannot control your partner's behavior with other partners, right? Like you might say, for me, I need to be with partners that use condoms with other partners that haven't been tested. And if you want to have sex with people without a condom that have not been tested, then we're not going to have sex till that happens, right? It's like what counts as boundary setting versus like control. Oh, thank you so much, LG saying. There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh. Ooh. Oh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, let's totally talk about that. I'm going to answer this first question that was super chatted first, and then we'll definitely get into that one because that's also very, very, very important. I think a very fair question. So yeah, I think what counts as like a boundary versus a limit versus like trying to control your partner, litigating that is like the favorite hobby of the polyamory community of like, that's not a boundary. You're just trying to control your partner. It's not controlling your partner. It's actually just a boundary. Like what counts as what is like very nebulous, and like everyone's going to have slightly different opinions about that. I think it is reasonable to say to your partner, I am uncomfortable with choking. That's not an activity that I want to do with you. And I understand if you want to seek that out with other people, and I hope you do that. I would really just encourage you, because I love you, I care about you, I want you to be safe, I want you to have a good time. Just really make sure you are researching that beforehand. Make sure you really vet the partner. Like, don't try to tell them they can't do it, because you can't ever tell them to not do something with someone else in a polydynamic that doesn't personally affect you, right? Like them being choked by somebody else does not affect your sexual health. It does not affect your risk for getting an STI. It does not, like, that's not part of this equation here because it's not a sex act. So you can't really tell them not to do those particular things. You can encourage them and communicate to them that you care about them and you want them to be safe and you want what's best for them, while understanding you can't necessarily ban them from doing something with other people. Now, if you feel very strongly about this and you're like, I absolutely do not want to be with a partner who is getting choked by other people, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, I don't think I can handle that, that is something that you either need to internally deal with resolving, because I don't think that, like, emotion, like, fits the facts necessarily. I don't think it like, we'd have to go through kind of a checklist of, like, a process for that. I think that may be not in line with, like, how to conduct, like, a healthy egalitarian, like, polydynamic. However, part of the rub here is having a power exchange relationship where if you're the dominant and they're the submissive, you do have a little bit of an authority there to say, as your dom, because our rule and our contract says, rule number 1 says the property will protect the property, the submissive will protect the submissive. As your dominant, I consider engaging in choking to be a violation of this principle of our contract that we have outlined together. If you choose to engage in this, there will be a punishment or whatever, right? You may choose a punishment. You may just decide that like is a violation of your contract, something you really need to seriously consider in your relationship. Because there is that power element to it, you have to very carefully consider that, because it's a very fine line between maintaining your power and authority in the relationship and trying to use your power exchange relationship to control other relationships. I have been on both sides of this myself personally, where I have been with partners who have tried to use a power exchange relationship to control outside relationships in a way that I thought was inappropriate. It was not something that I had negotiated to or consented to. But if you have something in your framework that you've negotiated to and talked about, and that is like part of your foundational contract that says like, you know, these sorts of things are not okay, you must protect yourself, you know, you're not allowed to engage in these certain behaviors, then that commitment gets a little bit more serious, you know. Yeah, trying to think of anything else sort of with that. It definitely is a very... Yeah, this is a very big question, so I want to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. But yeah, I think in general, if you just, all you want to do is express your concerns to them, I just think being, you know, it's never going to help to hide it, right? Like if you have little tiny thoughts here and there about like, oh, I'm worried they're going to be more attractive than me, like kind of just little passing thoughts that you don't necessarily have to bring up. But I think if you have an open relationship and they are going to be seeing other people, I think it's perfectly normal to bring up, hey, like I think it's great you're getting to explore, like just be very encouraging, be very like happy for them in their process of getting to play and see new things and see new people. But you can do that in a way where it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. So you don't have to be over the top, right? I'm kind of being hyperbolic for the sake of, you know, getting at what I'm trying to get at here. Being like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. You're going on your first date. That's so amazing. I love that you're getting to explore other sides of yourself with other people. I love that you're getting the opportunity to try these new things. I just want to talk to you because I know that something that's been a conflict in our relationship is choking, and the fact it's a hard limit for me, but it's something that you're really into. And I just want to reiterate that I support you exploring with other people. I hope you have a fun time. But I just hope that you choose to engage in that in a safer way and make sure the people you're playing with know the risks of what you're engaging in. And I trust you to do that. I trust you to be able to do that vetting process. I just want to reiterate that I care about you. I love you. I want you to have a fun time. And I want you to be able to come home and, you know, have more fun times with me. Or whatever, right? This is very, like, improvised, so it's not perfect. But something to the effect of, like, not discouraging, not shutting anything down, just being very open and emphasizing the care and trust already there in the relationship. That is what I would do. Okay, so the next question that we got was about, having an abusive relationship, impact play, that kind of being taken away in a sense, and like trying to become comfortable and like the option of seeing a pro dom. Now, there are a lot of pro doms out there, and they all have varying levels of quality. So I can't necessarily speak on like a universal, any pro dom would be able to handle this well, but I think it is maybe more common than a lot of people would realize that people go through, bad relationships, they go through a breakup, they have, abusive relationship, they're going through a divorce. Something went on in a previous relationship where maybe BDSM was part of it, maybe it wasn't, where you want to be able to recapture that for yourself. You want to be able to take back that experience for you and have it just be yours. And I think that a professional, like, you should be able to fill out a form and like, read up on other stuff, like, do all the normal vetting stuff you would for a professional. I think if you want to see a pro dom, I think that can be a really good way to have a very controlled experience where it is centered on what you want to do. Some pro doms are not always like that. Some pro doms are still like, I'm going to do whatever I want, and that's part of why I'm a dom. But most pro doms are going to be doing what they are doing because they want to give you the experience you personally want to have. And so what I would probably think about saying is like bringing that up in whatever paperwork you have to fill out and mention, like, I'm just trying to get back on my feet again. I really love BDSM. I've previously had experiences where I had a partner that was abusing me that, used BDSM as a veil for what they were doing to me that was wrong. And I am trying to reclaim that and get some of that enjoyment back in my life. And I think going to a pro dom for that can actually work out better than like a whole relationship, right? Because like a whole BDSM relationship is a lot, like mentally and emotionally, even if you don't have, another experience you're trying to work through that maybe negatively impacted you in some way. And so I would say that having something that is strictly a professional relationship where they're just going to give you whatever it is you say you want to do can actually be very powerful in reclaiming that experience of like, I get to say exactly what happens. I get to say exactly what is going on here. I get to say, no, I have these safe words. And just doing like, a really light, more intro level scene, maybe still impact play, right? But still, light, a little bit fluffier, just something to kind of get your feet underneath you to feel good and feel better and not just always be, wondering what could happen if you like were willing to do it and just kind of going out and doing it and trying to have a positive experience with it. It's very complicated. I think a lot of this depends on like where you are in your personal healing journey. Like if this just happened and you're like a month ago or something and you're like very early on in the recovery process from having been in an abusive relationship, I wouldn't really recommend diving into this right away because just from like a risk perspective, you are potentially, and I don't know what mental health professionals you have access to or not, like that you could definitely be risking some kind of trauma experience or running into a trigger or something doing a BDSM scene like pretty early on afterwards. So I think if you've been maybe 6 months, a year into sort of recovering from this, you've gotten some help from other mental health care providers, you're kind of more set up and solid emotionally to deal with the kind of emotional turbulence that can just naturally happen in a BDSM scene, even if it's like really awesome, we really enjoy it. I think that could be something that can be very healing for you, because when you are, I think the difference is when you are seeing somebody who's just like an individual that wants to have a personal relationship with you to do BDSM, they're kind of looking out for their own best interests, right? Like they're trying to advocate for like, I want to do this, I want this, I like this. And so you're having to kind of negotiate and meet in the middle sort of where both of you kind of overlap. And that can not always necessarily be good if what you want is to make sure you have complete control over what happens. And so I think finding a professional will give you a more consistent experience. I think they may be trying to find a random person, of course, because also like, going through the whole process of like going to a dungeon, meeting people, vetting people, like all of that can be so taxing emotionally, and you might not be ready to, for example, go to a public dungeon where a bunch of other people are screaming and crying. That might be very upsetting. Whereas when you are in a private one-on-one dungeon space with a professional where it's their thing, it's their setup, they control everything about that environment from the music to the lighting, that again allows you kind of more of that access for control of, I don't have to worry about other people bumping into my scene. I don't have to worry about people staring at me. I don't have to worry about the noises other people are making. It's just me in this experience, and what I want to have happen will happen. I have a friend who is a pro dom who helped me tremendously after I was assaulted. 4 sessions of learning to be okay with being touched again. 100% recommend using pro services. That is such a touching story. Thank you for sharing. I think that absolutely, like, don't overlook pro doms. Like, a lot of people think, oh, pro doms are just for like horny men and fetishists and stuff, but like pro doms do a lot of really important work with helping people like be emotionally okay with intimacy again in a way that we don't really like. There's not really a vanilla version of that. We don't really have a consistent, like, therapists and stuff are supposed to maintain a physical distance from you, and doms do not have to do that. Doms are very much up in your personal business. That's how they work, right? That's how doms work, is being up in your personal business. Anyways, I don't know why I suddenly feel very tired. I don't know what's going on. I might fall asleep on the couch. I listened to your episode on Hannah Witten's podcast. It was pretty good. Thank you, Spencer. I had a fun time. Yeah, if you guys don't know, I've done a lot of collaborations recently. I was on the What's Your Safe Word podcast. I was on Hannah Witten's Doing It podcast. I have a video that came out for Zipper Magazine. What else? Oh, I was on the American Sex podcast as well. I was on the American Sex podcast, and I have like a standing invite to come back to like all of those whenever I want. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I had fun. I very much enjoyed those, and I hope I get to go back. What are your thoughts on silks as restraints? Oh, like aerial silks? Like, just, I keep looking over here because I taught a BDSM 101 class, and I had like a bunch of shit all lined out to like show people, like, this is what cuffs look, this is what a blindfold looks like. I don't have it though. There are worse newbie restraints, is what I would say. I think that if I had, like, if you gave me 4 options of like, which is the best kind of restraint to like give a new person, and my options were handcuffs, rope, leather cuffs, and like a silk blindfold or something. The order in which I would trust those things would be leather cuffs, silk blindfold, rope, and then handcuffs. Because people also, I didn't even talk about this earlier, people fucking lose keys all the goddamn time. People get handcuffs, they get 1 pair of keys, they go, oh, I'm gonna remember where this is. They fucking put it in their pants pocket. The pants go through the washing machine like 5 times. They have no idea where the key is. They pop on the handcuffs, and then they go, oh, I thought my key was right here. And then they have no idea where the fuck it is. And sometimes, depending on the model of the handcuff, they're fairly easy to pick, but like, you shouldn't be relying on lockpicking ability to get yourself out of a jam. Like, you should just, like, keys, make 10 copies. They're super cheap. Like, why just do it, Anyways, silk stuff I think is fine because, or is at least better, because usually stuff like silk blindfolds, it's not very long. And so it's sort of like, what's the phrase of like, cut yourself a piece of rope long enough to hang yourself with, like whatever that fucking phrase is. Like, if you just have a silk blindfold, it is very difficult to get yourself into too much of a fucking issue. Like, all you can do is like wrist or ankles. That's really all you got room for, right? So it's a lot harder to mess things up and like go too crazy and like cause nerve damage when you don't really have enough rope to cause any problems with, or like you don't have anything long enough to really like go around somebody's whole body or go around their arms, their torso or something. I don't think they're bad. Actually think I'm curious why more people don't use them, because I think especially if you're into really quick stuff, I think just like having a silk blindfold or like a dish towel or something makes a really quick, simple, easy gag, blindfold, hand restraint thing all in one. Rihanna did some STD testing, so she's really cool for promoting safety. Oh, she did it publicly? Oh, I had no idea. Go Rihanna. Good Rihanna. Don't really love the Fenty lingerie brand. But, you know, everything has to be a subscription model these days, I guess. So why not make lingerie a membership model? Because monetize everything, baby. Let's do it. I have never actually tried any of her makeup, and I wish I had some of her makeup. Oh my god, Jenny Nicholson posted a video. I'm gonna have to watch a Jenny Nicholson video tomorrow. I love it when I just get to look at my phone and then it's like, oh. Speaking of Catholics, conservatives losing their mind over Megan Fox, and Leather Pope Halloween. Just listen, I fucking love that shit. Like, listen, okay, Protestants are not allowed to be offended by anyone who dresses up as a nun. You don't have nuns. You're not allowed to be offended. You think everyone, like, Catholics are allowed to be upset about it if they choose to, but every Catholic I know thinks it's funny as shit. Like, I like this. Like, it's a little bit, you know, it's maybe a little bit tired as far as like a Halloween trope goes. I thought the Megan Fox dressing up like a sexy nun, I thought that was great. She didn't even really look like a nun. Like, that's the thing though, is like, it is fun. Like, I don't know. You guys, like, is there a way I can link you guys to this? Cause like, some of these photos are like it's one of them is like her on her knees eating a communion wafer, and I'm like, damn, that'd be a scene. Like, give me my first communion, daddy. Like, this is what I want. I want a dark roleplay first communion scene. I want to be quizzed on like all the different prayers I'm supposed to have memorized on the rosary, and like, I want to be punished. I want to be punished, daddy. I mean, father. I mean, I think that would be super funny. Like, it's very sexual. I'm not gonna lie. It's extremely sexual. So, I find it hilarious for that reason. That it's like, she doesn't even really look like a nun. She's just like wearing black. And then I guess he has like her on a leash on like a waist belt or something. And then he actually kind of looks more like Eastern Orthodox, not gonna lie. Like, because it's black with red. Like, it's not even like that she's just straight up wearing like a regular ass nun outfit, you know? She's just like, I'm wearing black lingerie and like a velvet cloak, and I'm a nun. Like, it's, you know, I guess they technically had wine and like maybe a communion wafer, but I'm not offended by that. I just think it's funny. Because, like, let's be honest, like, I don't know how the fuck Machine Gun Kelly landed Megan Fox. Like, what the fuck is that about? Like, I don't know. I just feel like my opinion is Megan Fox, almost any man she's with is going to be completely, like, below her league. And in my opinion, I think Machine Gun Kelly is a huge fucking loser. But also, they dressed up like... Didn't they also... Was it the same... They did a different Halloween of... They did the sexy nun and the father. And then they also dressed up like Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee. Who, if you don't know, Tommy Lee was very abusive to Pamela Anderson. So I find that to be a much more bad costume than the nun costume. I'm much more offended by that than the not even really a nun outfit. And then, like, is it like an Eastern Orthodox priest? What do they even look like? I'm trying to think. Yeah, he looks way more Eastern Orthodox, and he looks like a fucking, like, there's nothing in the calendar, at least in the Roman Catholic calendar, of the liturgical year. I think that's how you say that. I haven't had to say that word in a very long time. That even anywhere looks close to the vestments that Mr. Machine Gun Kelly had on. Like, get over yourselves. Catholics, Christians, I'm sorry, you're not an oppressed minority. Get over yourselves. Good times, though. Thanks for bringing that up. I think I saw that when it first came out, but I didn't really look into it at all. But, like, kneeling and getting a communion wafer from Machine Gun Kelly. The problem I have with that is the Machine Gun Kelly part of the equation. I don't give a shit about it being a fake priest. I'm like, you can just buy communion wafers. Do people not realize you can just buy communion wafers? I have communion wafers in my BDSM kit right now as we speak. I have communion wafers at my disposal at any point. I am literally ready to transmutate Jesus's body into a cracker at any moment during a kink scene. Or rather, transmute a cracker into Jesus's body. I think that's maybe the more accurate way of phrasing it. You can get communion wafers that aren't blessed already, and they aren't actually sacred yet. So even if they just had some pre-blessed wafer, it isn't an issue. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not even special yet. It's just an unleavened piece of, like, air, essentially. It doesn't really taste like anything. It's very, and even when I was a kid, like you probably even get the wine, too. I'm a little jealous of Catholic powers now. I mean, it's never too late to be saved by Jesus. If you really care that much. Yes, it's transubstantiation is, I believe, what the term is. Quite interesting, the consensual play of a woman submitting to a religious authority is what upset them, not the actual subjugation. I mean, you think about it a little bit, right? Like, they're upset because, oh no, they made a priest sexy, as opposed to, like, but she's willingly receiving the sacrament of our Lord and Savior. She is willingly taking the Eucharist. Like, to be fair, there are some denominations and there's some churches that get very upset around people that are not, like, either people that have not gone through the process to accept a first communion, or people that have not truly accepted Jesus into their heart as their Lord and Savior. People get upset if they are offered communion because they think that in some way, like endangers everyone in the parish. It's like everyone that's part of the church is like, oh no, we've accidentally, given this to a non-believer. God will now smite us. Like, that's okay. Looking forward to a FetLife guide. I'm getting divorced and finally free to explore my interests in DS relationships, but kind of horrified to try and find folks. I think that's great advice. Yeah, I will definitely be putting that out, sometime soon-ish, most likely. And I will let you know when it comes out. And best of luck getting through your divorce as freely and simply as possible and getting to explore your own self in your independent way that you deserve. Oh no, chat got yeeted to the bottom of the chat. Alright, I'm gonna find where I was again. What would you, okay, good question. What would you recommend wearing to a no dress code event when you are just looking to scope the venue and not attract unwanted sexual advances as a newbie? Plain black clothing, don't expose your genitals. If it's literally no sort of anything. Like, there's just no dress code at all. We're not going to give you any advice on what to wear. We're not going to tell you how fancy it is or not. I would really just wear like plain black, like black jeans, black t-shirt, like something like maybe something like if you wanted to wear something or if you only had something with a design on it, I would maybe wear a black t-shirt with a design on it. But basically just dress like you're a stagehand and you're working on a play. If you want to be in the background and not really be approached, and you just want to scope out the venue, like plain, but also like not like khakis and like an orange polo. Like, don't wear something that's going to stick out as being not obviously BDSM, but don't dress like you're there to play. Like, don't have a toy bag. Don't go around carrying a flogger. Like, just like, don't bring anything with you other than what you need to. Don't bring a toy bag. Just be, me, myself, and I in black jeans, black t-shirt, black shoes. That's it. Yes, okay, I commented on that. Yes, I did see this. Andrew Callahan from Channel 5 did say that he was potentially going to be covering ABDL, and then Hassan referred to them as crinklers, and I'm like, oh my fucking god. Everyone knows too much about this now. It's too mainstream. I would die in a good way. I would die in a good way if Andrew covered ABDLs and it wasn't a Cringetopia festival of badness. I think it would be very similar to when people, like, I think maybe even Andrew has covered furries before, and then when you find out is furries are a bunch of rich neurodivergent tech nerds that really just like, dressing up in costumes and being nice to each other and like art and like it's not anything too dark or sinister. They just are like, I don't know, I think it's cute. I like cartoons. I like dressing up as a lion. It makes me feel good about myself. It's fun. It helps me with my social anxiety. Leave me alone. Like, that's really all it is at the end of the day. And I feel like if he interviewed people or went to like an ABDL convention, because there are a couple of ABDL conventions. There's one in Florida, I think. Trying to think. Yeah, there's CapCon in Chicago. This hasn't actually been updated. There's TeddyCon, which is in Pennsylvania. I don't actually know if that's still happening. I think those are the two big ones that I know. Oh, there's West Coast Jungle Gym in San Diego. I don't know if that's still happening. Oh, TeddyCon got canceled, but Casey Strom, CEO of ABD Universe, our trusted, lovely man who I think we saw in the Vice video about ABDLs, is creating a new convention that's supposed to take place next October. It says Casey is currently assembling his board of directors to create a fantastic, fun-filled event. He has promised to honor TeddyCon ticket holders that were unable to attend events in 2020-21 by granting ticket holders first access to tickets and a voucher code for the value paid for the prior TeddyCon ticket. As a point of clarity, AB Universe will not be operating the event, but they will be a sponsor. Casey has formed Stramatica Inc. for this new event and will operate it with a separate team assembled of a group of volunteers. Interesting. I don't know when they announced this. So TeddyCon's not around anymore, and then West Coast Jungle Gym, their link also doesn't work. I know there are other ABDL conventions and things that exist that are out there. Okay, funny, the AB Universe doesn't. Anyways, I'm excited to see what they come up with that. Yeah, because they're based out of Everett, so it would be deeply funny to me. Oh, and it's funny because he's also, it says that he's also the president and CEO of Northwest Vox, an international telecommunications firm based in Everett. Oh. Interesting. Anyways, I think that would be great if he covered it. Like if he went to DomCon LA or some shit, or if he went to DomCon New Orleans, I would love it. I would love it. I think that it would be super, super entertaining to have Andrew Callahan somehow because everything gets demonetized. Somehow walk through DomCon or like a BDSM convention and then just be like, what's BDSM about exactly? Like, because he's a really, really good interviewer, both in terms of like showing people's insanity and then also like just being respectful. Like, he does not give a singular shit about like anyone, where they come from. Like, he lets people be who they are on camera, for better or for worse. Midwest Fur Fest, I think. Oh, is that the one that he went to? Yeah, this is still based in like FAQ. This is still based in Everett, right? Which I find very interesting because that means potentially the big ABDL conference might end up being in like my neck of the woods, which I would find very interesting. I would enjoy that very much because then that means that like I feel like a lot of stuff ends up being very like East Coast for ABDLs for some reason. Anyways, how do we even get onto that? I don't know. Okay, the dress code thing. Best painless but still physical punishments for a brat. Physical, painless but still physical. It depends on what you define as painful. And what you define as being physical. Because I would consider writing 100 lines to be a very physical activity. Because your hand can cramp. It's the mechanical action of writing the lines. It can also be emotional and mental, but the physical part of it is like the big component. Best painless, but still physical. Tickling, probably? Tickle torture? That's definitely very physical, but it's not painful in the way that people think of as like being painful. Could also be things like, you know, holding ice cubes, maybe. Like having to hold your arm straight out and like hold ice cubes. Or like having to dunk your head in cold water. Also a good hack for like emotional regulation in general. Yeah, I just think it really depends on like how broadly you want to define what physical and painful is, but also still being a punishment at the same time. Because what someone would process as a punishment is a very individual experience, because some people are going to be like, tickling is my favorite kink, that's not a punishment at all, and then it's not going to work, obviously. Having to do like anything like in terms of physical fitness, right? Like having to jump rope or like do jumping jacks or things like that. That can also be very physical, and then, like, it's not painless in the way that like spanking is painful. But it's sort of like exercise can be painful, I guess. I don't know. Physical exertion, does that count as pain? That's where my mind goes, at least. I hope those, you know, sort of baseline ideas help a little bit. Ah, yes, the giantess trend on TikTok. Yeah, we talked about that. What would you recommend for starting out with impact play? In what way? I would probably say, if I had to start with impact play, what I would recommend is like just start with your hands, right? Start with like spanking, maybe like a closed fist if you want to do kind of more like sensation with like punching or something on somebody's butt. I would start just using your hand, just regular, just on the butt, just like very plain, not fancy, slow, really short scene where it's like 10 spankings or something. The reason why I recommend that is manyfold. I recommend using your own hand to do it with, because that really lets you have a physical connection with the bottom and kind of get that tactile feedback you don't typically get when you're using, for example, a flogger, a paddle, a whip, things of that nature. It's relatively low skilled because it's literally just your hand. It is therefore much easier to mess up with, and also it's much easier for you to be able to really grade it in between like a 1 and a 10 versus like a toy might just always be no lower than a 5. Like even using it very softly is still like a high level of intensity. So using your own hand really gives you an opportunity to really work out all of those on the spectrum from like 1 to 10 in terms of intensity. And I think and thank you for the super chat as well, Bad Cat.
Bad Cat donated $5. In a dungeon where I don't know anyone. How acceptable or how to ask women who are just standing around if they would like to play. I'm an older male sub, which think most want. Real doms have been shy about asking for play.
I think that's a good question. I'm gonna wrap this up and then we'll get to that one. So, how do you approach people for play? So I think just low, slow, simple stuff, and then as you get more confidence with just using your own hands and stuff, that's when you can add in more, like getting a simple flogger, getting a paddle, and still kind of focusing on simpler areas. I also think the butt is like the safest place to start because it has a lot of padding on it and it's relatively difficult to injure, whereas like the back, it's got the spine and the neck, and like it's a little bit harder to, you gotta kind of have your aim a little bit more dialed in first compared to the butt, especially if you're doing things like pretty up close. But then I would build onto that, do other implements, maybe add on things like bondage, blindfolds, gags, things of that nature. All right, so the next question, how to approach people as a male submissive who's also a switch, approaching women who are standing around to see if they want to play. So this is very tricky because you can't necessarily know just by looking at somebody if they want to play or not. Or if they're like waiting on a partner, if they're just there to observe, if they can't really make a lot of judgments. But I recommend if you are at a play party and a lot of people are like standing around, and it depends on how your dungeon is laid out, but a lot of the dungeons that I've been at, and this might not be true for everyone, is a lot of dungeons will have an area that's like more casual and social, and then like further on or deeper in or on like the second level, the play will be more intense and there will be more that you can like, the basically the farther away from the social area you are, the more likely it is that heavier play is going on. And I think it's easier to approach people that are just in the social area, that aren't like really deep into spectating. But I think, I don't really know if there's like there's a bunch of stuff to not do. But there's a lot of ways that you can do it that is at least acceptable and would work. And I think if the person is by themselves, the key thing is to make sure that you're not physically trapping them in their space. Now, if they're in a group and they're with like 2 or 3 other people, they're kind of in a group together, it's a little bit of a different dynamic, but especially if it's like a younger single person, really make sure, like if they're like, for example, like if they're sitting in a chair, like if they're sitting in a chair and there's like a wall behind them, don't like block their sitting, like don't block them between like the wall and you. Don't block them into not being able to get out easily, because that can make them feel like a little bit trapped or cornered. Like if they're next to a wall, maybe approach them by like the side and leave like the in front of them open. Like just communicate you're not trying to like tower over them physically or like intimidate them in some way by your physical presence. Like when you approach them, like make sure they're not boxed in. Make sure don't approach them when they're like leaving the bathroom or like in a corner or something. Like, just make sure there's a little bit of openness there. I'm not a big believer in like body language as like a science, but there are some things that are like, if they look very uncomfortable and keep kind of like moving their eyes around, like looking at the clock or whatever, they probably don't want to be in a conversation with you. But if they're like more engaged and like making eye contact or things, like that's a good sign. Just, try and kind of get a little bit of a read on them first in terms of like, do they seem comfortable here? Are they watching something that makes them seem concerned? Like, and if they seem like they're kind of positive and receptive, approach them. If they're sitting on like a couch or something like that, or if they're standing up and there's like a chair next to them, maybe sit in the chair next to them and kind of put yourself in like a lower position visually than they are. So again, you make sure you're not like kind of towering over them. And then there's a million things you can start a conversation about, right? It could be, maybe they're wearing a band t-shirt, or like they got a Kink t-shirt on, or a button or a pin or a sticker or something that they're wearing that has like a Kink logo on it, or you can ask them about that stuff, right? Or if they're wearing something that has like video games or an anime or something, a bunch of different things you could potentially start a conversation about if they've got something on their person that either is like a logo or a reference to something or whatever, if you know about it at least. You know what it is, that can be a good way to start a conversation. But it might also be as simple as just like approaching somebody and being like, hey, I haven't seen your aunt before, how you doing, my name's so and so, and then they can introduce themselves and go, oh yeah, I've been here before, and you go, oh, what are you watching? And they could say, oh yeah, I like watching the flogging scene. Oh, have you ever done a flogging before? You start getting into a conversation. Oh yeah, I've tried flogging before. I took a class once. Oh really? Where was that? Where was that class at? Did you enjoy it? Oh yeah, it was really good. It was from this one person. I took it like 2 years ago. Oh, that's interesting. I took a flogging class one time. Blah blah blah. Like you start naturally getting into a conversation that is not directly about playing with them or playing with them or finding them physically attractive in some way. Given I am an asexual woman, so do not take my advice that strongly, because I am in a very different position than most people are when it comes to talking to people. Like for example, if I see a woman that I think is interesting that I want to talk to, usually there's a million things about this woman that I think is interesting or like sensually or aesthetically attractive. And I'll be like, oh yeah, your nails look really awesome, or I love how you styled your hair, or your makeup looks really good. I try not to compliment people on things that are like physical attributes that are unchangeable, right? Like their nose or like something like that. But rather like something they did that like required effort or forethought for them to do, right? Like the way they painted their nails, the color of nail polish they chose, how the time they took to style their hair, the fact they went out of their way to pay someone to style it for them, or putting together an outfit, because that gives them a way to, I feel like if I'm talking to a person and I'm complimenting something that they did for themselves, it's about like, hey, tell me about this thing. How did you do this? How did you pick this? Like, and we can get into a conversation about like, oh, I really love how you did your hair, or your makeup looks really good, or where'd you buy those lashes, or whatever. And we can have more of a conversation sort of based on that. But that's me talking to other women. And I've never really approached a man before for a conversation, so I don't know how to do that. I'm sure I have at some point. I have like started conversations with people over like people who are looking for people to play at like a play party on like FetLife, like in a group. Somebody will post like, like if you go to a convention or something where it's going to be a really popular event, people will post basically a personals board. Well, they say, hey, for this event, post what you're looking for play for an evening. And then I'll respond to people on there, or like people on dating apps. I will 100% send a guy a message first. I do that like fairly often. But like in person, I don't really approach men. But I would say that when I felt the most comfortable with a man approaching me, it's been somebody who's been aware of like not boxing me into a space, just having a casual conversation that's relatively easy to exit from. And then once we've established if we have a little bit more of a connection or not, then we get into like maybe talking about play or something like that. And then I've had that happen a lot where we started a casual conversation and they say, hey, I'm about to do a scene with so-and-so if you want to watch. Or if you don't have another scene planned, it could be, hey, well, if you want to do something besides just watch, I did bring a toy bag with me if you want to maybe experiment with something. Not anything that's like too committal, not anything that's like, I want you to be my forever submissive, I want you to be my next mistress. Like just something that is like, hey, like we're both here and we're both watching, like, but maybe we want to do something else besides just watch. And a lot of people would really enjoy the opportunity to do more than just watch, and they would like to be able to experiment with like a flog or a paddle for the first time, and maybe you get to be that person. They might not be looking for like super deep attraction. They're just excited about like, oh, I'm gonna be able to do this thing. Awesome, cool, why not? Yeah. Evie very methodically and politely saying, don't be a creep, don't objectify strangers. I mean, like, that's really what it is, though. It really is, don't be creepy, don't objectify strangers, treat them as more than a need fulfillment machine, and, treat other people as human beings, really. And just like, I think the main issue that a lot of people run into that I've observed at like, you know, DMing play parties and things like that is people don't realize like their physical presence. They don't realize the space they take up or like how they might come across as like intimidating. And then like they go to play parties and they like corner the girl that just came out of the bathroom and they're getting into a conversation with her because they don't like understand how like the reason she's talking to you is because she literally trapped you, dude. And I think the best way to start a conversation with somebody is if there's like a group of people having a conversation. It's a lot easier to kind of insert yourself into the group of people talking than it is like a one-on-one conversation. But your experience is going to vary. Yes, just show up and participate. Definitely counts for a lot, for sure. All right, we got 8 minutes left. I highly recommend, if you want me to answer your question, put it in a super chat. Do that down below. Go to Streamlabs, do whatever. Otherwise, I will just scroll through the remaining questions. Skyrim was really big and felt less like a nice curry and more like a sparsely populated Jell-O. It did kind of I don't like, it's such an out there comparison, but I also kind of understand what you mean. It was a very shiny Jell-O. It was a very nicely polished Jell-O that was in a very fancy mold, but it was also just still a Jell-O. There are new TikTok accounts dedicated to stitching other videos and determining whether or not they're fetish content. I find that hilarious. It's literally, we have a Kink police and they're on TikTok. I've always said the BDSM police doesn't exist. Turns out they do. They're on TikTok. Do they have like police sirens that go off and stuff when they find somebody who's kinky, or like what happens? Okay, it is extremely funny you bring that up, Precious Pair. I somehow got onto the kink side of TikTok, and it's all about CNC and Primal, two things I'm not into, like LMAO. The number one thing, I did a poll on my Instagram. I got a bunch of people who asked me to do shibari classes, and I'm like, I can't do that. And a bunch of people who told me to do classes I already do, like pet play. The number one thing that I saw, like across the board from people, was CNC and Primal play specifically. Why? You people can't even, first of all, you can't even do consent correctly. Why would I teach you how to do consensual non-consent? Walk before you can run. Like, consensual non-consent is not TikTok day one. But this is the thing though, right? Is like, it's a very alluring fantasy. And a lot of people are very much into ravishment, somebody overcoming me and I can't stop them. Oh no, it's so horrible, it's so awful. They're gonna do anything they want to my body. Like, it's like the most common vanilla fantasy ever. I'm not kidding you. That is like the most popular fantasy for cis women, is like being overcome by a more powerful force. Somebody being so horny for me, they just have to take me right there. Like, that is extremely vanilla. But the execution of actually doing something like that with a real partner where they are legit doing things to you that maybe you don't actually like, that is some advanced shit. But if you don't know what affirmative consent looks like, if you don't know what like informed, revocable, you don't know what that is, sorry. You can't just be like, I don't know. I find it very interesting that people kind of just seem to be throwing around the word consensual non-consent a lot now, because everyone that I know in the BDSM community that does like consensual non-consent is like, they've been doing BDSM at a very high level for a very long time. Like, when they play hard. They are not just like dipping their little toes in and doing a little bit spanking and then they do anal sex. Like, the equipment is heavy duty. It mostly involves things purchased at Home Depot. You know? Hi, I would like to drive. How do I start a Formula One car? Okay, thank you. It's pretty much exactly that. It's a little bit, I'm not saying people can't do it. I just find it funny that both it's seen as like the pinnacle of kinkiness when it's like the most common fantasy ever. But also because it's the most common fantasy ever, everyone tries to leap into it like as soon as possible. And because it's very edgy, and because, as was very wonderfully demonstrated to us by Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly earlier tonight, edgy shit is very popular right now. Anything that's like sexy, dark, edgy, out there, taboo, like that is what's trendy and very interesting right now. Like, I don't know if that's a reaction to like trad wife stuff or like how that works out exactly, but it is very trendy right now, and so a lot of people are into that for that reason. The Reddit CNC subreddits got really, really big, and then Reddit banned them with a new guidelines update, so maybe just displaced Redditors. Wait, I had no idea, but that also 100% makes sense. I could see why that would end up getting banned. So, yeah, yeah, maybe displace Redditors. The primal play thing I find very interesting because back in my day, I think this is directly a result of the BDSM test. I think the only reason people know about primal play is because of bdsmtest.org. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. You can't stop me. There are regular ass vanilla YouTubers that on a slow news day will take the BDSM test. Everyone knows about primal play now. It's very like everyone knows the term. This is the thing though. Nobody knows what the fuck it is. Nobody has any fucking idea what primal play is. They're just like, I don't know, it's being primal in your instinct and like letting go and stuff. And then that's the class. That's the whole class. That's what you learn. I have taken 3 primal play classes, I believe, at this point. And every single one of them boils down to, I don't know, it's like following your instincts, man. And like, I have had people beg and plead with me to do a primal play video for fucking years, and then I make one about predator and prey dynamics, which is like one of the core components of primal play. At least one of the main versions of it, I guess. Maybe that's a better way of phrasing that. And, like, it was not, like, it wasn't not popular, but it wasn't, like, it didn't blow up or anything. Like, it wasn't like it was super popular. And I'm like, you fucking bitches begged me for years to make a video about this, and then I make it, and then nobody watches it. No one comments on it now. And it's like, what the fuck? So I think it's very funny that it's, like, this, like, everyone's really into it and talks about it a lot, but nobody knows what the fuck it is at the same time. Like, at least in the time that I've been in the kink scene, like in the last 7 years, like I think we have a little bit more of a solid definition, but there's not like a primal play community. There's not like in the same way there's like a pet play community or like an ABDL community or a little community. Maybe on TikTok there is, but if it is, it's the first place I've seen it. Yeah, maybe Omegaverse. But the thing is that this is my thing, and this is maybe why I should make another video about this, is primal play is not alpha and omega. Primal play is not predator and prey. Primal play is not consensual non-consent. It can be some of those things. You can do primal play with an alpha omega component, with a role play flavor to it of predator and prey, but it's one subset of it. It's like saying that all of animal role play is pet play. It's not. It's one way to do it. Or that all CNC or consensual non-consent play is ravishment, right? Like it's one subset of it, but it's not by any means the full thing. So yeah, I learned about it on some website in 2001, then forgot about it, and other things. I tried to be vanilla for a few years. Yeah, I remember seeing, I think the website that I found for it originally was like 2011 or something. Because I first found out about it, like, you know, into my, like, early on in my kink journey. But I found out about it because of the BDSM test. Because I was very, very new, didn't know anything. And that was, like, my highest score was in that, like, consistently. And so I researched on that. And that's, you know, that's how I found it. It's very interesting. I'm not really sure where TikTok's going with that. I feel like it's kind of just, like, people want to be edgy on TikTok for videos. But, like... again, I don't know, like, primal play, like, sort of involves, like, kind of an inherent level of, like, consensual non-consent, because it is very, like, I'm not going to get into teaching about primal play right now, but it is very, like, instinctual and very, like, based on, like, you know, like, deep headspace stuff. And so, inherently, because of that, communication and consent looks very different than a lot of typical BDSM scenes do. And, like, the rough body play and the wrestling and everything else that can go into it. And, yeah, just, it's a mess. I don't trust TikTok. Yes, I did make a video. If you search on my channel for Predator and Prey, it should pop up. But I did do one, like, last year. Anyways, that all being said, it's 8:02. I gotta go watch the Great British Bake Off. Edginess does get the views, right up until you get banned. That's the thing, though, right? Is like, I feel like it's only a matter of time before TikTok finds it, decides it's kink content, and then deletes it. So, you know, I'm not invested in any sort of way. I would be interested to see what people do, because I've wanted to do like a react to TikToks video, and I haven't done it yet. And maybe I should find ones on like Predator or like primal stuff or CNC stuff. So if anyone has any of those to send to me, let me know. Anyways, primal play aside, I'm gonna go watch Great British Bake Off. Thank you so much for being here. Do you want to say hello to the people again, little dog? Hi, you. Hi, you're over there. Why don't you come over here? Come over here. You're so tiny. Come here, dog. Oh, stretch out. Stretch out. Good girl. Come here. Oh. Come on. I can't reach you. Come on. Why do you always roll over so far away? Now, my little sweetheart. All right, are we going to say goodbye to the people? Are we going to say goodbye? Yeah, there's that smile. There's that smile. Bye-bye. 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 Thank you all for being here. If you're new here and you want to see more from me, I stream every Friday at 6, so please subscribe. I also make videos twice a week. I am on Twitter. I'm on YouTube, obviously. I'm on Twitch. I am all over the place. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out and asking your questions. Have a safe weekend, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye. Look at that big tail. Look at that big tail.